Ladies and gentlemen, let's continue our discussion. This time I'm going to present to you a very important tool in test planning or test preparation. You should learn about this. Take this very religiously because you will be asked to do this when you become a teacher. Before you can present your periodical test or quarterly test, whatever you call it, you will be asked by your department chair or your principal to submit your table of specification, well, together with the exam sometimes. Sometimes it is submitted in advance. So you have to learn how to prepare this. There are many ways of preparing a table of specification, simple ways, complex ways, but what you will have to follow, of course, will be the pattern or the format that your school recommends. So different schools have different ways of preparing a table of specification. Pero actually, the table of specification is for you as a teacher. But, as I said, schools suggest ways of preparing it so that it's uniform for all the teachers. Okay, what you should learn today is the essential elements. What should your table of specification contain? The table of specification is sometimes called the test blueprint. Just like an architect, when he is planning a house, he has to present a table of, not table of specification, but a blueprint, which will be followed by the engineers, the foreman. So a good house must have a good blueprint, just as a good test must have a good test blueprint, which in the education jargon we call table of specifications. The test blueprint ensures that the teacher will not overlook details considered essential to a good test. So the TOS ensures that a test will sample whether learning has taken place across the range of 1. Content areas covered in class and reading. So in other words, the content of what you had taken up within a given period is indicated in the TOS. Aside from the content, you have to include the cognitive processes considered important. Now, what are these cognitive processes? If you follow Bloom's, then you will have the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. If you follow Anderson's and Krathwohl's modification of Bloom's, then you will use remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. This Anderson's and Krathwohl's cognitive dimensions is what is being followed by DepEd. I will repeat, no? Krathwohl's and Anderson's hierarchy of cognitive dimensions, starting with remembering or recalling, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. In the last two highest levels of cognition, this is where Bloom and Anderson and Krathwohl differ. Because in Bloom's, synthesizing precedes evaluation. So at the apex of Bloom's taxonomy, that's the apex is evaluating in Bloom's. In Krathwohl's and then Anderson's, the apex is creating. let me go back to the essential elements. So you have to indicate the content areas, and you have to indicate the cognitive processes considered important. So it will form a kind of matrix, no? Where at one side you have your content, and at the top side, you will have your cognitive processes. Now, why is it important that you prepare your TOS? The TOS ensures that your test will include a variety of items that tap different levels of cognitive complexity. What does this mean? Um, you will have to have items under knowledge and or remembering, and then understanding, which are the two lowest levels of cognitive dimensions. And then you have your applying up to creating the higher levels. Who right? So with the TOS, you will have to indicate under the appropriate column the items that had been constructed using those cognition levels. You will receive, or you will have access of examples of this in your classroom, Google Classroom. So you will be provided this in your Google Classroom for your guidance, of course. But I would like to repeat, different schools have different ways of preparing TOS. What they have in common is the essential elements must be in the TOS. So when I present to you maybe a couple or examples of this, these are just examples. What I said to you earlier, you must follow the school's format. Even when I was teaching in Bicol University, even in the graduate school, we had to prepare a TOS. Even in the graduate school. So this is how important a TOS is. We have to show our department chair or dean, for example, that what we put in, what kind of test we give to our students, the tests are aligned with what we teach. And this is the importance of TOS. It gives assurance to us teachers and to the administrators that what we teach are aligned with the description of the course and then the course objectives. Now, these are the essentials of the test blueprint. Take note, please. It has to have a content outline. Very important. It lists the topic and the important objectives included under the topic. It is for these objectives that you will write test items. The test items not aligned with the objectives are not valid test items. Take note of that. So alignment is very important. Next, let's talk about categories. The categories serve as a reminder or a check on the cognitive complexity of the test. Is your test the items that you have prepared in your test? Baka lahat lang yan ay lower level, lahat lang recall, lahat lang understanding, wala yung upper level of cognition, wala yung application, analysis, etc. The test blueprint will show that. Whether your test, the items in your test provide a balance. Okay. Take a look at this, or consider this. If your test items are all true or false, oh no, okay, true or false, multiple choice, supply type, matching type, maybe you can have a balance, because in the true or false and in the multiple choice, both of these can test the application level, the analysis level, the even the creating level can be assessed by these two kinds of tests. However, if your test, because it's the simplest to prepare, if your test consists only of supply type, like filling in the blanks, and then matching type, as I said, because they are the easiest to prepare, then your test will be heavily, um, shall we say, they, the test will put more emphasis on the lower level, because the supply type, not supply, the completion type and the matching type would only simply measure or assess recollection or remembering of facts and concepts, nothing more. All right. However, a well constructed, very well constructed multiple choice can, as I said earlier, can measure from remembering up to creating. Okay? What more of an essay? An essay can test all the higher order thinking skills from applying up to creating. Very well constructed essay test can do that. So the varying test types can ensure that your test is comprehensive as far as complexity is concerned. All right. So what now are the functions of the TOS? Sorry. First, the TOS should be able to convey or will convey how many items are to be constructed for each objectives and content topics. All right. Simultaneously, you can see what kind of objectives along what content area is being tested by a particular item. The items are placed in the cells. Okay? You will see that in the example that you will be given to you. This item about this content falls under this complexity of or complex objective, this high level objective. This content falls under this low level of, okay. So the test item found in the cells will be determined, or will rather determine what content is being tested under what cognition level. All right. So the TOS will also show the test, whether the test will reflect a balanced picture of what was taught. Baka the test items, that because it's easier to prepare, your test items is concentrated only on one particular topic, and the rest of the topics, only has probably one one representation of test item. So it's very convenient for a teacher to concentrate developing test item topics only for those that are easier to prepare for. Like easy content areas would also demand easy kind of questions, no? All right, so, but with the TOS, it's going to reflect whether your test is balanced. Next one. Another function of the TOS would be, it would convey whether all topics and objectives will be assessed and their level of cognitive complexity. Now, you have to access the examples that I am going to give you. Um, One was prepared by one of my advisors in the masteral teaching physics. It's beautifully prepared. So that's why I selected it to give to you as an example. Another is one I prepared in assessment. I am going to show this to you because in the table of specification, I have included not just the test items, but activity, a list of activities per content area. No? All right, you will see, for example, there that in this particular content area, under applying, it's not objective kind of test. It's not traditional kind of test that will assess the learning of the student, but it's in the activity, the application of what they have learned. So activity after activity to show the level of understanding of the students by way of being able to apply what they knew or what they learned from you. So I'm giving it as an example to you that the assessment or the TOS that you will be given will include not just traditional, but it could also include alternative types of assessment. Okay? You will see that. You can access that later on through your Google Classroom. Okay. So you will have to examine the handouts that you will be given through your Google Classroom or through our Google Classroom. Okay. Now, there is one activity there. That's activity number 1, where you will be asked to make a TOS. Not really. Activity. Okay. TOS. And then the test. The test that you will be made to do, and I'm giving you a couple of weeks to finish that. The test that should be aligned with the objective. So necessarily, you will have to prepare a TOS for the 50-item test that you are going to construct. You are given ample time to do that. And the instruction will be given to you in the activity itself. The activity that you will do will show me, as the assessor of your learning, whether you are able to apply what you have heard from me or what you have read on your own from reference books. Activity 2 will be asking you to make a lesson plan. You may have been taught already in some of your courses how to do a lesson plan. What I am after will be, where are you going to integrate assessment within the lesson? Before or in the engagement portion, in the lesson proper, or in towards the end. So you see, the formative assessment should happen across the lesson, meaning the assessment could be in the beginning, it could be within the lesson itself, in the proper lesson proper, or it could be towards the end of the lesson or after the lesson, when you extend the application of what you have learned in the classroom outside of the classroom. So assessment, may I repeat, can be found before, during, and after the lesson. That is what I'd like to see in the lesson plan that you are going to prepare. Just in case, I'm assuming that you had been taught how to do a lesson plan in some of your courses. However, if you need an example, then I'm going to show you an example, although it's again in physics, but you can see the elements of the lesson plans in it. All right. You will access this again in Google Classroom. So these recorded lecture will be supplemented by what you will receive in the form of handouts. Please study very well the handouts because they are the application of what you are expected or what I'm expecting you to be able to get from the lectures. Okay? Test blueprint. Well, just in case, no? You have some questions to ask, feel free to do that. Of course, through email, if you like. Oh, sige, pwede rin sa, but I'm not sure I will be able to reply. Pwede rin sa CP, cellphone. But read first, ano? Because the answers to the questions, especially in the test, ano, are found in the lectures. And if you can't find the answers, then feel free to consult reference books. All right. As far as test is concerned, I mentioned earlier that you will have 3 10-item tests each. So long quiz 1, 2, and 3. And you have midterm, the midterm, which is 2. You will see that in your handout. Huh? Okay, the 3 quizzes are supposed to be due 5/22 on Saturday after the lecture. On Saturday. Okay? Your lecture will be given to you as siguro earlier. So you can listen repeatedly to it. Or you can read already, Para on Saturday, you can submit what needed to be submitted. I'm giving you until 22nd, no, not 22nd. Edmundo, 22nd. Oh, 22nd. Don't worry so much about the test, but try to do your best, no? Because you will be given a chance to, I'm not promising, but if I see that you're not doing very well in the items, then I might have some adjustments to do. Okay. Pag-uusapan natin yan. Because I hate to give low grades. Generally, I'm a high-rated faculty member. I give high ratings, Okay, anyway, pag-usapan natin. Test blueprint. So, assuming, ladies and gentlemen, that you are done with your planning, therefore, you are going to make the test and administer the test as scheduled in your classes. No? If it's quarterly assessment ang ginagawa, ang 4 na periodical test, first quarter, second, third, and fourth quarters. No? And that is where you prepare your test blueprint or TOS. All right. Assuming that you have done a very good test, following your plan, which is the test blueprint, then administered it to the students. What's next? You score the test. So our next discussion will be, how do we score the test? And what does the score mean? That will be our next topic. But before that, let's talk first about 2 very important characteristics of a good test item. And these are reliability and validity. Objectivity, no? If there are objectivity, if the test is objective, let's say you say that true or false is objective, multiple choice is objective, objective tests, are easy to score. So, because no matter how many scorers are doing or scoring your test, they will arrive at the same score if the scoring is accurate. However, if you give an essay, even if it's a restricted type of essay, given the scoring to two individuals, there will certainly be maybe a slight or a huge difference in their scoring. That's why we say that an essay is subjective. So let's talk about reliability and validity. Very important concepts in test development. Now let's talk first about the properties of a good test item, and these are reliability, validity, and objectivity. When we score an objective test item, let's say true or false, multiple choice, or whatever, it yields what we call a raw score or test score. Now, that raw score is not a direct measure of what the students learn from you. I'll repeat, the test score is not a direct measure of how much the students learned from you. The score, raw score, is simply a representation of the true score. The true score plus or minus errors that influence that score. What do we mean by plus or minus? I'll repeat. The raw score is a representation of the true score plus or minus errors that influence it. By experience, you know that somebody who has not studied well, who has a friend who's very diligent in studying, would say to his friend, "Taning kita ha, let's sit side by side." The intention is, tulungan mo naman ako. Pahiling mo naman sa kuya, so simbag mo. Okay, therefore, the true score of that fellow who sat beside somebody who knows a lot will be a representation, his raw score will be a representation of his true score plus what he got from his friend. So kung ang score niya ay 50, siguro ang kanyang true score dyan is only 45. Ang 5 ay nakuha niya sa katabi niya. That's a plus. Okay, that's a source of error. Another source of error could be during the exam, somebody was not feeling well, no? So instead of being able to remember what he has studied because he was not feeling well, he was not able to study all. To answer all. So, ang score niya na 40 out of 50 could have been 49. Could have been 48 or 45. Or could have been better than what he realized at the end of the test. But because of the fact that he was not feeling well, no? So, minus yun. So, do you now understand that the true score or the raw score obtained by an individual may not really be his true score, but the true score plus or minus some errors that influence it. Okay. Now, scores can also be influenced by errors caused by guessing. Especially kung true false man lang yan, kung true false yan, ang chances of getting the correct answer by guessing. Even if you don't know the answer, you can just write true or false. And your chances of getting it correct is 50%. Just like when you are tossing a coin. So, correction has got to be done by formula. Correction can be done using the formula as you can see on the screen. Correction for guessing formula is corrected score equals R, where R are the items answered correctly. W, items answered incorrectly. And N minus 1. Okay, what is the N? Of course, the N varies. Let me give us an example, true or false. Suppose I give you, which you will be given actually as an exercise, as a long quiz. You will be given a true or false test. All true or false. 1 to 35. Out of 35, how many will you answer correctly? Let's say you answered correctly 20 out of 35. So the R there will be 20. Therefore, if you answered all of the items, your wrong responses will be what? 15. Right? Okay. Let's look at the divisor. The divisor is n minus 1. What is the n? The n is the number of options. Okay, given to the student for a true or false, the number of options is 2. Okay, so 2 minus 1 is 1. Is that clear? N is the answer choices for an item. So in other words, if it is true or false, the answer choices is 2. This formula will hold true to all other types of tests, especially multiple choice. Let's look at the example. Okay. The test type is true or false. Therefore, the N is 2. Okay? R, 48. W, 20. Omit 7. How many in all were the items? Tingnan natin. Right, the A is 48. Ang wrong is ilan? 20. 68. Ang omits is 7. So, 75 items, di ba? Okay. So, anyway, we are not concerned with the total number of items. We are only concerned about the wrong and the right responses. We're not even concerned about the omits. Okay. What is 48 again? The right responses. What is 20? The wrong responses. What is 2? The number of options. What is 1? Okay. Minus 1. The 1 is constant. So substituting, we have 48 minus 20 divided by 1 equals 28. So, guessing for or correcting for guesswork, bibigay mo lang na score sa taong yan o sa individual na yan. Instead na 48, ilan lang? 28 lang. That's correcting for guessing for a true or false. Did you get that? Okay. Siyempre, pag marami ang choices, less ang chance mo to get the correct answer. So, let's look at the multiple choice. Ang multiple choice na ito ay merong 5 na options. So, ilan ba ang chance mo to get the correct answer if you were just guessing? Ang chance mo is 1 out of 5. Translate that to percentage. Your chance of getting the correct answer. If you don't really know the answer, and if you just guess the answer, your chance of getting the correct answer is only 20%. Very slim chance compared to true or false. So let's see the score that you would have gotten if you guessed. You did some kind of guessing. Okay. 48 ang correct response mo. 20 ang wrong responses mo. Ilan ang choices? 5 options. So 5 minus 1 is 4. Alright, 48 minus 20 divided by 4, which is 5, no? Equals 43. Okay ba? 20 divided by 4 is 5. 48 minus 5 is 43. Therefore, correcting for guessing, your score would have been 43 only instead of 48. Do you understand? Much bigger siya, ano? Much bigger siya kaysa true or false. Maliwanag na po ito. No? Okay? Sige, I assume that you got this right. Ano po ito? Correcting for guessing. And guessing is a source of error. Sige. Now, another way by which we can make good items or we can select good items, especially when we are preparing for division-wide or nationwide na test. No? It has got to be tried out first before you can select really good items for inclusion in a standardized test. May pilot testing tayo. No? And through this tryout testing, we select the good ones, the good items to include for this kind of test. You know, it's not easy really to make a standardized test. It goes through a certain level. There are certain steps that you must follow when you choose items for inclusion in standardized test. Okay. Now, there are two processes that you need to understand very well in this case. And these concepts and process are the difficulty index and the discrimination index or the power of discrimination. Now, the difficulty of an item is defined as the proportion of examinees who answered the item correctly. Now, notabene, the difficulty index is really an easiness or facility index. That's why some books call it, instead of difficulty index, they call it facility index or easiness index. Meaning the high values of D sub I, the high values of difficulty index means low difficulty. High values of D sub I means low difficulty. meaning easy. Kung may difficulty level na 0.95 or 95%, ang difficulty level ngayon is 95%. That means that the test item is very easy. Very easy. O ang difficulty level ngayon kaini is 10%. That item is very difficult. Ang difficulty level ngayon kaini is 50%. Well, that item is of moderate difficulty. So the difficulty index ranges from 0, which is too difficult, nobody got it right, to 100, which is too easy that everybody got it right. That's the range of the difficulty index. Now, the difficulty index is very easy to find. What's that? It's simply number of correct items divided by the total number of items. That's it. Of course, if you do that, you will get proportion. You will get a decimal for an answer. Decimal po, ano? Multiply that by 100. If you want to express the difficulty of index in percentage, then simply multiply it by 100. Okay. Example. For a 20-item test, I got 15 out of 20. So what is the difficulty index of that? It's 0.75 or 75%. Is that good or bad? Okay. Some time ago, I think I can remember already, that I have mentioned this to you. If one gives a formative test, let's say the formative test is again 20 items, and you got 75, 15 out of 20. 75% of the class got 75 and above, then the teacher can proceed to the next lesson, because the mastery performance level set by DepEd has been reached. The teacher can say, okay, I can proceed to the next lesson because I have reached the satisfactory level, which we call, what do we call that? MPL, Mastery Performance Level, which is 75. Now, if you reach only 50, you cannot move on yet to the next level. What will you do? You're going to look into which items did the students did not get very well. Now, you will have to reinforce the teaching of that item. So, the action that the teacher must take is reinforcement. On the other hand, if the MPL, what is MPL again? Mastery Performance Level. If the MPL falls short of 40, let's say 39 lang, percent, 0.39 or 39% lang, then what will the teacher do? So any MPL below 40% or 0.4, the teacher has to reteach the concept or the process. You cannot move on to the next lesson. That is the importance of getting the MPL. Okay? How do we get that? MPL? Ay, malaking kailangan natin, ang calculator natin. Kukunin natin ang 75% ng klase. So, kung ang klase mo ay 50 students, ilan ang 75% of that? That is, let's say, 50 divided by 0.75. You need to have, 50 times 0.75, 37.5%. Since we don't have a 0.5 individual, then we can either drop that 37. 37 of your students must get 75% of the items right so that you can move on to the next lesson. 75% of the class must get 75% correct. Oh, is that clear? That's the definition, its definition of MPL, Mastery Performance Level, that is satisfactory. Satisfactory in the sense that you can now move on to the next lesson. Okay? So, for discrimination index, this is a bit more complicated, no, than the difficulty index. The NU here, as you can see in the formula, the NU means the number of students who got the item correct in the upper group. The NL is the number of students who got the item correct in the lower group. So what this means is we are going to split the number of examinees into upper and then lower group. If it's only a few number, let's say 30 examinees, then all you need to do is split that into 15 upper performers and then 15 lower performers. That is what is meant by NU and LU. If it's too many, let's say 70 students, no? Instead of splitting just that, all you need to do is look for the upper 27%. So in other words, get the 20 individuals, 20 highest performing individuals, and then 20 lowest performing individuals, and analyze their errors. Okay? Did you get it right? Ulit po. Kung konti lang po ang number of examinees, let's say 13 o kaya 20, all we need is split that. Ano ang splitting value natin? Median. Get the middlemost score, split that. Okay, or if it's 20, get the upper 10 and the lower 10. Upper 10 to be represented by NU, lower 10 to be represented by NL. Okay, so the number of correct obtained by the number of correct responses obtained by the upper level minus the number of correct responses gotten by the lower level divided by the number of, is this correct? NU. Number of students who got the item correct in the lower group. Number of students who got the item correct in the upper group. NU is the split. Actually, it's let me correct this, because the NU here means the number of NU. Let me check that, The NU here is supposed to be the number of the split, in split mong number of examinees. So in the case of 30, you split that into upper and then lower. The split number is 15, 15, 15. So if you have 20, 20, the split number is 20. Okay, let's, instead of 40, 20, 20. So NU here is the number of upper scorers. Let's take this, no? For technical reasons, discrimination index analysis is usually carried out on the top and bottom 27% of the examinees. I explained that already. If you have so many, let's say 100 examinees, just get the 27% upper and 27% lower. That's it. Instead of getting all for item analysis. So 27 and then 27. Okay? So the denominator here will be 27. Uh, let's say the number of examinees is 60. And you do not want to take all for your item analysis. You're only going to get 27% of 60. So you are only going to get 16. 16 upper and then 16 lower. So your divisor will be 16. Is that understood? Another example. If you have 70 examinees, you are not going to take all, but you are only going to get 27% of 70. So you will multiply 70 by 0.27. How many will that be? So instead of getting all 70, you will only get 19 upper and 19 lower group. 19 individuals na nasa highest, 19 highest scorers, and the 19 lowest scorers. Okay? Divided by 19. Okay? Items that are very hard or very easy cannot discriminate well. I'll give us an example. If you have an item that is too difficult, nobody got correct. So from the upper group, 0. From the lower group, 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. Divided by whatever the number that you have split, let's say 27, divided by 27, that's 0. So, no discrimination power. Let's say that the item is too easy, that everybody got it correct. Let's say that you have 30 examinees. You split that, 15, 15. The lower group got 15 correct answers. The upper group got 15 correct answers. 15 less 15 is 0. Divided by 15, that's 0. So there is no discrimination power in the cases that I have given as an example. However, however, this is a principle in test development. When we develop tests, we have to include a few very easy items or items that do not discriminate may be included for their beneficial motivational properties. What does this mean? Especially if you put these items at the earlier portion of the test. 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy items. So, nasagot ng lahat. Everybody got that correct. What's going to happen? That's going to boost the morale of the, kaya ko pala, nakasasagot pala ako ng tama. So, everybody, no, mabibigyan ng motivation to move on to the rest. But, if you put in the test, the first few items, very difficult, what do you think is going to happen? The test takers will be put off. Grabe man niya kadipisil. So, instead of being able to be motivated to answer all, maybe they're going to give up. Because the first few items were too difficult for them to answer. So, it's all right. You put in a few very easy questions at the initial or the first few numbers. For what? For motivational purposes. Now, what's going to happen if the lower members of the lower group get correct answers rather than the members of the upper group? What's going to happen? Let's say in the lower group, the correct answers gotten is 8. Sa upper group ay 2. What's going to happen? 2 minus 8 divided by, let's say the split number is 10, divided by 10. What's going to be the result? It's a negative. And we call that negatively discriminating item. And it has got to be rejected kasi wala siyang value. Okay, when more people in the lower group pass the item than in the upper group, the value of the D or the power of discrimination will be negative. And it's a no good item. Okay, I'm going to illustrate this to you on the board. But before that, let me stress, let me emphasize the way to interpret the difficulty index and the discrimination power or the discrimination index. The simplest way to use discrimination index for test development is to retain the items. Retain the items with the highest value. So, ano yung highest values? Any value equal to or over 50.50. Yun ang ibig sabihin. Pag may discrimination power na 0.50 or more, then retain that. What about the rest? To eliminate the ones with the lowest 0.20. Okay. So, kung may discrimination power na 20 or lower than that, then what do you do? What do you do? Discard that. Eliminate that. Now, the discrimination and indices of between 0.20 to 0.50, that's a huge number, 0.20 to 0.50, then you can consider these items for modification. Maybe i-modify mo yung options, i-modify mo yung stem, because to a little extent, to some extent, it can discriminate. Items with negative discrimination values should be rejected. Items with discrimination values should be negative discrimination values should be rejected altogether. So kung meron ka dyan na negative 0.10, alisin na, tanggalin na yan. Negative 0.19, tanggalin, no? Kasi negative nga, may negatively discrimination power. Now, what else do we need to do when we are doing item analysis? We are going to examine the distractors. Ano ibig sabihin ng distractors? All right. In a multiple choice items, there are either 4 options or 5 options, one of which is a keyed option. So in other words, one of which is the correct answer. Therefore, the other 3 are not correct answers. These not correct answers are what we call the distractors. Now, sometimes the distractors are too obvious, too obviously wrong. Too obviously wrong. So, yung item na yan ay giveaway item yan, no? Kasi, too obviously wrong. By elimination, tatanggalin yan ng mga estudyante. So, matitira yung, kahit hindi nila alam, matitira, makukuha nila ang tamang sagot. So, the options have got to be what's called plausible. Katanggap-tanggap, kapali-paniwala. So, that's the difficulty in the selection of options to include in a multiple choice item. Kinakailangan makaka-attract sa mga hindi marunong. So, they have to be plausible to attract those who don't really know. Okay? Anong tawag natin sa kanila? Yung mga hindi keyed options, yung mga hindi yung tamang sagot. Ang tawag natin po sa kanila ay distractors. Some books say distractors, whatever. Distractor, they must be attractive. Attractive enough to allow those who don't really know the answer to select them. Okay. You will have an exercise. Exercise number 2 will be given to you. All right. But I think I need to explain this on the board. Okay? Yeah. Okay, I'll explain that. Now, let's go to reliability. Reliability is the degree to which measures produce consistent, stable indicators of the level of the variable under study. Again, consistency. Kung consistent yan, dependable yan. Huh? And reliable yan. If you say yes, yes, and yes, no? To, let's say, Maria is an honest person. Okay. You answer yes. Given a situation where honesty is called upon, Maria is rated honest. Another situation, again, where honesty is called upon, he is a judge, Maria is a judge, honest. So there is consistency. Therefore, you can depend on somebody saying that Maria is honest. Because 2 more are saying, given these situations, Maria is truly honest. Okay, therefore, what you said is reliable. Reliability, dependability, they mean the same. If you are a reliable person, then you can depend upon because you are reliable. What you say, you do. Okay. Tests tests have got to be tested for their reliability. And there are three general ways by which we can test the reliability of a certain test. The first one is test, retest, reliability. From the term itself, you can say that there are two instances where the test is given. First instance, you score that. The same test given another instance, let's say today and then tomorrow, today and next week, the same test is given to the same group of people. If the scores yielded is the same, then we say that there is a test, retest, reliability. Sometimes they differ a little, no, but not much. If they differ considerably, then the reliability is compromised, no? So a test, retest, reliability test is measured in terms of statistics we call correlation coefficient, or in this case interval yan, then we say we can make use of Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient to measure, to test the reliability of the two tests, test, retest. Okay, kung gusto kong makita ang reliability ng ginawa kong midterm exam, okay, bibigay ko ngayon is Thursday. Bukas, ibibigay ko the same test to the same group of people kung pareho pa rin ang mga sagot as we expect. And then we compute for using, what did I say? Pearson's product moment correlation coefficient. Kung mataas po ang reliability coefficient, then we say that the test is reliable using the test retest reliability. Okay. What is the extent? Ano po ang measure ng reliability? Ano ang range ng measure ng reliability? Take note, no? The coefficient, the reliability coefficient, the range of that extends from 0, which is no reliability at all, to 1. 0 to 1, where there is positive 1, where there is perfect coefficient, correlation coefficient. Okay? But rarely does it happen. So, 0.89 is nearer 1 than 0. Right? So we say that a test retest that yields 0.89 coefficient of correlation has a high test retest reliability. Okay. On the other hand, a test that has a reliability only of let's say 0.2, that's a very slight reliability, then you can depend on that test. Something must be wrong with that kind of test. 0.5 is a moderate reliability, not quite as high as 0.89. Okay po, test, retest. What's the range? 0, no reliability, to plus or minus. Bakit may minus? Meron pa rin na perfect reliability or perfect coefficient. Kaya lang negative. Ano ang ibig sabihin niyan? No? Kung kumuha kayo ng statistics, ibig sabihin ng negative correlation is if one variable goes up, the other goes down, no? Meron yang tinatawag na as one goes up, one goes down also. If you compute for the reliability coefficient of that, a perfect correlation would be a negative correlation, 1. Negative 1 is a perfect correlation. May consistency. Kaya lang negatibo ang consistency. Well, just to clarify so that you understand the concept. You may not necessarily be taught the process, you take that up in statistics, but the concept is there, ano? If you get a high positive relationship, that means that there is a high correlation, no? Okay. Let me give us an example, a negatively correlated variables. Okay. Years of schooling of a mother. So from no schooling, which is 0, to 20 plus, which is a PhD level, 20 plus years of schooling, 20 plus or more, no? As against 0, which means no schooling. That's one variable. Pit that against the number of children they are likely or they had. Hindi na likely, ano? They ever had. Are you following? If what you expect, the one with a very high level of schooling, very, very high level means many years of schooling, less 20 years of schooling. Ano kaya sa palagay nyo? Maraming anak o halos walang anak? Walang anak. Lalo't hindi nakapag-asawa, copy PhD, hindi nakapag-asawa, di walang anak. Walang contribution. Okay, so it could range from 0 to 1 to maybe 2, 3. Compare that with somebody who just has to stay home kasi wala naman siyang trabaho. Andyan lang siya sa bahay. Inuuwian lang ng salary ng asawa. Walang trabaho. Ilang kaya ang magiging anak niya? Marami o konti? Sa palagay niyo? Marami, hindi ba? Okay, so kung kukunin mo itong mga babaeng ito nakatapos na ng kanilang panganganak, in other words, women of 45 years or older, kunin mo ang number of children nila at ang number of years of schooling nila at ipit mo against each other, then you compute for the correlation coefficient, you would know that the women's schooling is negatively correlated with the number of children that woman or women have. The more children they have, the less number of years of schooling they have. The more children they have, the less number of schooling they have. So, yun po ang ibig sabihin ng negatively correlated. If you want me to explain that further, maybe I'm going to show that later. Now, let's talk about another test of reliability we call split half reliability. The split half reliability is an internal consistency measure of a scale of reliability that is derived from the correlation of scores on half of the items on a scale with the other half of the other items. Ibig sabihin po nito, may internal consistency o reliability ang isang test. Pag kinuha mo ang even-numbered items, let's say, 100 na items yan. Ilan po ang even number dyan? 50. Ilan po ang odd number dyan? 50. I-score mo ngayon ang bawat isang test taker. Ilan ba ang score niya sa even-numbered items? Ilan ba ang score niya sa odd numbered items? Ngayon, pag parehas-parehasin mo yan. Let's say you have 20 examinees na kukunan mo ng datos. Ulitin ko. Yung, yung test nito, halimbawa si Maria, ang score niya ay 48 out of 100. 48. Ilan ba ang tama niya na sagot sa odd number? Sige nga. Ilan ba ang tamang sagot niya sa even number? Expectedly, dapat pareho yan. No? So, halimbawa, what did I say? Ilan ang score niya? Let's say 40. Ini-expect natin na 20 ang even numbered. 20 ang score niya sa even numbered at 20 din sa odd numbered. 40. Kaya lang hindi yan, it's not that easy, ano? Sometimes, it's not that accurate, I would say. Sometimes, ang score niya doon sa odd number is, let's say, 18. Doon sa even number ay, ang score niya ay 22. Hindi magkapareho, ano, pero hindi magkalayo. Ba't ba nasabi kong 22? 40, 40. 40. Tama. Okay. Hindi, kasi kung 40 ang items, dapat 20 dyan ang even, 20 ang odd. So, hindi pwedeng lumampas ng 22. I'm sorry about that, no? Okay, so halimbawa, ang score niya sa even ay 18. Ang score niya sa odd ay hindi dapat lumayo dyan, no? Sa 80 na yan, no? Okay, yun ang ibig sabihin natin na may consistency, pero kung ang score niya sa odd numbered items ay napakalayo compared to the even numbered items, ano, then there is no internal consistency. Yun po ang ibig sabihin ng split half reliability. I think you will have to read more about this kasi kung minsan lumalabas yan sa LET, ano? Test of reliability. Just remember that when we say split half reliability, the test is split into halves, and the splitting sometimes or oftentimes is done using even odd dichotomy. Okay? What is done? The examinee is scored on the even numbered items and scored on the odd numbered items, and these are pitted against each other. And then the, the correlation coefficient is computed. If the result is high, then we say that there is a strong internal consistency, no, of the test items. So that's the split half reliability. On the other hand, yung parallel test reliability, anong ibig sabihin ng salitang parallel? Parallel is almost the same. Okay. Anong ibig pong sabihin nito? Reliability computed by calculating a correlation between scores on a test and scores on a parallel or very similar form of the same test. So may test ako, tawag ko ay test A. Gumawa ako ng halos pareho in content and in format. Tinawag ko ay B. Parehong-pareho ang content, parehong-pareho ang format. Okay. Pero they are not exactly the same test. Alright. So, ang test A ay ibinigay mo sa isang grupo ng estudyante of the same grade level. Ang test B mo ay ibinigay mo to another group. And then, kinuha mo ang mga scores and then you compute for the coefficient of correlation. And if the coefficient of correlation is high, then the test could be adjudged as reliable. There are two internal consistency measures, and these are what is called as coefficient alpha and KR20. Okay, You can read about this if you want to know. Because anyway, um, in the let, you will not be asked to do computation. No? All you need to do is, what is KR20? What is coefficient alpha? These are measures of internal consistency, which you can use for testing the reliability of the test. Okay? So, ulitin natin po, there are three general ways of establishing reliability of a test constructed by a teacher. We have test-retest reliability, split half, and parallel test reliability. Okay. So, ang measure natin, binanggit ko kanina, of internal consistency are coefficient alpha and KR20. Ano ang definition niyan? The definition is the degree. If we use that, then we will get the degree to which the scores on items in a scale correlate with each other. Kaya nga internal consistency. At ang example natin dyan ay ang split half correlation or correlating half of the items with the other half. Iisang test. Ano? In-split natin. Ngayon, ang makuha nating value using coefficient alpha or KR20 will yield the degree to which the scores in the test items correlate with each other. So, internal consistency. Yung tinatawag nating test-retest correlation, the correlation between scale scores obtained on the test at one time and scores on the same scale taken at a different time. Thursday ngayon, tomorrow, ibigay ang test again. Okay? And tingnan ang korelasyon. Or kaya, correlating scores on a scale given in the first quarter and the same scale given in the second quarter. No. That's test-retest correlation. Inter-rater reliability, tatlo kaming raters, apat na raters. Ano ang reliability ng scores namin sa isang essay, for example, o isang whatever event that we are scoring? Okay, ano ang definition ng inter-reliability or inter-rater reliability? It's the ratio of agreements between two or more observers or raters to the total number of observations. So for example, tatlo kaming raters. Ang nire-rate namin ay demonstration lesson ng isang nag-a-apply for admission. For isang nag-a-apply for a job in a particular school. It's very likely na hindi pare-pareho ang aming judgment. May magkakaroon ng pagkakaiba, okay? So, ang ratio of our agreements, 2 or 3 of us, assessing an applicant, the ratio of our agreements is what we call, inter-rater reliability. So, nirate namin ang isang applicant along 10 aspects. Ilan ba dito sa 10 aspects na ito, anong pare-pareho ang ratings namin? Kung perfect yan, 10, 10, 10, perfect, napakahusay na applicant, then there is a very strong inter-rater reliability. However, if our ratings are desperate, magkakaiba, then there is a problem in our inter-ratings. Therefore, ang reliability ng ratings namin ay medyo questionable. Baka I'm biased because I know the candidate. The other one is also biased against the candidate dahil alam niya ang background, etc. So, ang inter-rater reliability is compromised. Kung magkakaiba, desperate ang result ng aming ratings. Examples, agreements among raters in scoring of compositions, yan. Mga essay-essay na yan. O kaya, pinasulat mo ng short story. Competition yan. Tatlong napakagandang short stories ang naisulat. Tatlo rin ang nagre-rate. Okay, pareho ba ang ratings namin? No? Okay. Agreements among observers in behavioral observations. That's reliability. What about validity? Ano ang ibig sabihin nito? Validity is the degree to which an instrument actually measures the concept or construct it is supposed to measure. If I say I'm measuring achievement, then I should be able to measure achievement, hindi personality. If I'm saying I'm measuring your temperament, then I should be able to measure temperament, hindi achievement. Hindi score mo sa isang test, no? Now, if my test, the test that I develop, truly measure what I intend to measure, then my test is valid. Now, take note of what is said here. A measure may be reliable. Test mo, rini-test mo tomorrow, ang taas ng reliability. And yet, that test may not be valid. So, hindi tayo makakasiguro na ang highly reliable na test is also highly valid. Did you get me po? Ang validity kasi has something to do with, does it really measure what you want to measure? Okay. Samantalang yung reliability is, are the results consistent? Okay. Ulitin po natin ito kasi mahalaga po ito. Ano? A measure may be reliable. Reliable siya, very high ang reliability, yet it may not be valid. But we cannot say that a valid test is not reliable. So in other words, a valid test must be reliable. It cannot be not reliable. Do you understand? No? To be valid, your test has got to be reliable. Pero sabi natin kanina, a reliable test may not necessarily be valid. So between the two, when we are looking for an instrument that will validly yield a result that we want to see, then we say that validity is really a very important, in fact, more important than reliability in this case. But I'm not saying that reliability is not important, but we have to ensure that whatever instrument we make, it has got to measure what we intend to measure for it to be valid. There are various types of validity that exist, but there is no single numerical criterion for validity. Unlike sa reliability, pag mataas ang reliability coefficient, correlational coefficient, then it has the criterion, numerical criterion is there. Pero po, hindi po natin yan masasabi sa validity. Okay, let's talk about may measure po, quantitative measure, pero wala po siyang single numerical criterion for validity. Now, let's talk about different kinds of validity. We have what we call the lowest level, phase validity. Ano ibig sabihin nito? The degree to which a measure appears to assess what it is supposed to assess. Appears. It looks like. It measures. It looks like. It appears. No? So on the surface, it appears. But does it really measure? So, phase validity. Ibig sabihin yan, sa tingin ay valid. Okay. Ang example natin ito, an assessment of self-esteem includes items that seem to knowledgeable people to be indicators of self-esteem. Okay. So, ang phase validity ay kinukuha sa tingin from the perspective of experts, knowledgeable people. So we invite over, for example, I want to I want to see whether the test that I have made is valid, no? Without testing quantitatively, then I may ask three different people, maybe the department chair, maybe a very good teacher, to look at the face value of my of the test that I have developed. And from their assessment, very good ito, very good. Very good, excellent. Okay. They are looking at the paper from their point of view, the test that you have made is valid. That's face validity without quantities attached to it. Let's go to content validity. Content validity is the degree to which test items correspond to the content of a course or a training program. What do you think is the tool that's going to determine the content validity of the test? One primary tool that's going to indicate the content validity of the test is what we have said earlier, the TOS. Ano ang TOS? Table of Specification. Okay. Example, a test of algebra corresponds in coverage to the content of the course. So, titingnan natin ang test na ginawa at ang syllabus, ang content ng syllabus. Kung magka-align sila, then we are sure that our test has content validity.